Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, welcome back to the podcast, Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode, which is all about a common occurrence in midlife, our efforts to stay young at heart. And I have a new way to think about it. I'm calling it How to Think and Grow Young, and I'll explain more as we get into the episode. In the nutshell, we're going to be talking about what it feels like to want to be young at heart, why it's a good idea to work on your thoughts and feelings related to aging, and finally, some solid ideas that fit beautifully into your life when you're committed to thinking of yourself as being young at heart. If this is your first episode, so happy you found us. You may not know this just yet, but you just found your midlife tribe. And as Women in the Middle need to know, you are not alone. We're here for you, and I'm here for you. And if you're a regular listener, I'm also here for you. Keep sending me ideas and suggestions for future shows. I really appreciate it. Speaking of listeners, I just have to share a recent iTunes review because I am grinning my face off. It's from Dee Dee from Washington. She writes that this podcast was created for me. I'm a 54-year-old woman in the middle, and I can't believe what a gift Susie's podcast has been in my life. I started at number 1, and I'm savoring each episode. My 2 girls have graduated from college, and I have a son in high school, so I've been enjoying her empty nest insights a lot. I write poetry and just signed up for my first poetry retreat because of the podcast on having a passion project. Well done, Susie. Keep them coming. Oh my God, Dee Dee, you go, girl. I want to totally hear a poem from yours from that retreat, so please reach out when you want to share it. I would love to have you read it here on the podcast. Thank you so much for such a wonderful review, and I really appreciate it. It means so much to me that I had an impact on your ability to move forward like this. Really, I'm beside myself, and I am so excited for you. If you're looking for a passion project too, the podcast that Dee Dee's talking about is episode 13, Do What You Love, Why You Need a Passion Project. My wish for you is that you also find time and motivation to prioritize yourself and find more time to do what you love. Yes, ma'am, that is a directive. Okay, here we go into this week's episode. So today we are talking about how to think and grow young. Many people call this being young at heart. And when you really think about it, being young at heart is a state of mind. You can be 18 and be young at heart, or you could be 80 and be young at heart. And as I'm talking about it, I'm sure you're thinking about someone you know who epitomizes this idea. When I looked it up, synonyms for the phrase young at heart are the following: inclined to act in a way or enjoy things characteristic of a younger person, emotionally young, mentally fresh, mentally young, young in mind and spirit, bold, and spunky. So I think you get it. Here we are, amazing women in the middle, midlife gals, midlife women, many pushing 50 or over 50, and many of us playing with a variety of different ways to think about our age. And, of course, our dissatisfaction with it. You might think, I don't look good anymore. Everything is falling. There's a weird line between my eyebrows. Some of us have 2 lines. They look like an 11. My body is different. My neck looks crepey. My face looks wrinkly. My boobs are saggy. My hair makes me look old. I look way older than I used to. And I just don't look the same as I did. So crazy, right? Of course you don't look the same as you did. You're older and wiser. Thank God. Right? Think about some of the crazy, stupid shit that you did as a kid. I moved to Canada when I was 19, and I moved for a guy. And my 19-year-old did that, I would totally freak out. Now, I know your mind is racing with all the stupid stuff that you did when you were less old and less wise. You have to confess and email me. Better yet, join my Facebook group, Women in the Middle Podcast Community, Regret Proving 101 for Midlife Women. And I will post a chat or a post on the topic so we can all talk about it. There are lots of midlife women in there who would love to talk about this too. Okay, so getting back to your thoughts about aging, if we weren't aging, we would be dead. And that's not the result we want. So why do we fight it so hard? I highly doubt that these thoughts produce useful feelings for you. Feelings that make you feel good about yourself. Right? Let's look at it. When you think, I just don't look as young as I used to look, how do you feel? Sad? Hopeless? Not motivated? At a loss? Maybe even depressed? Just lovely thoughts that you choose to think to make yourself feel like crap. So, you know the thing about thoughts, they are subjective. So you get to think something else if you notice that what you're thinking is the pits, if it doesn't serve you. The point is to be aware of it. For example, it's not the wrinkle that's making you feel negative, it's what you make the wrinkle mean. The wrinkle is just sitting there, neutral, minding its own business. You have to be aware of what you believe. You have to be aware of what you think. That is the first part of all of this, your mind. Could you think something else that would make you feel a feeling that you would want to feel on purpose? For example, like playful. I think that feeling playful is such a good one, at least for me. Silliness, right? I love feeling silly. And I know I feel this way because I actually think that I'm young at heart. I really do. I always have. For me, I think it has something to do with thinking about my sense of humor, or just the way I look at the world. And I've noticed that I have a belief about laughing, that laughing a lot keeps you young. I really believe that too. And when I think about that, I feel playful and silly on a pretty regular basis, perhaps even a little immature, which of course drives me to behave in playful and silly ways. And then as a result, I feel youthful and fun, which proves my thought that I'm young at heart. That's how it works. So think about the thought model for a minute. There are 5 features to it that are essentially the backdrop or the perspective to how thoughts work in your life. So first, things happen. Then you have a thought about those things. That thought creates a feeling. Your feeling drives what you do or what you don't do, and then you have a result from all of it. And this personal result of yours will prove the way you think. And so on. So, my amazing women in the middle, I would love for you to try on the feeling of silly and see what happens with respect to your views on your age. You can think about aging any way you want, but you just have to like your reasons. And you have to be aware of how your thoughts are working for you. So as I was talking, I couldn't get 2 images out of my mind. These images involve 2 of my most silly friends. These are 2 friends that I have spent more than a few minutes in what we like to call a crack up. And then you know what happens when you crack up. You have to go on high alert because you might pee your pants. But even with that, I think it's worth it. So some people are quietly silly, others are outwardly silly, and personally, I love a good crack up and I don't care who sees me. In most cases, I really don't care. And I can't really help myself. So to my silly friends, Carolyn and Karen, you guys know who you are. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the crack ups over the years where we couldn't talk, we couldn't breathe, we couldn't do anything other than pray we didn't pee our pants. And you might have already heard that laughter is a good thing beyond feeling silly and being young at heart. And so when you think about laughter, you may even recall hearing research about it. There is actual research to back it up. Studies have shown that laughter, humor, and joy are an important part of life. And they can even have an effect on you physically. For example, even though you might be peeing your pants, laughing lowers blood pressure, reduces stress hormones, and can even make you more resistant to infection. Can you believe it? But I know silly isn't for everyone. As a woman in the middle, though, I'd like you to give it some thought. Do you like the way you currently think about aging and your age? Remember, being young at heart is a state of mind, so your thoughts matter. And in my world, thoughts always matter, but you feel differently if you want to. You can absolutely think something and feel differently as a result of that thought if you want to. For example, when I think about being young at heart, I feel lightness. I feel energetic. But you have to work on those thoughts, right? They won't just pop in your head if you're not used to thinking them. That's why I want you to play a little bit. Like I said, maybe silly isn't the way you want to feel, but there are lots of ways that are better than the way you feel right now if you have some stinky thoughts about aging or your age. For example, wouldn't it be fun to feel amazing about your age? To feel content, maybe even grateful, perhaps excited. Those feelings are all options too. If you want more of that in your life, you just have to think accordingly. The other feeling I really like when it comes to thinking about myself as being young at heart is curious. Curiosity was part of our childhood, right? Just think about it. And it was so much fun. Think back for a minute. Are you allowing yourself to feel curious like you did when you were a kid? Are you allowing that curious to creep in at your age now as a woman in the middle? So I hope those few examples started to get you thinking about your own thoughts when it comes to your age and yourself on the youthful scale. I wanted to give you 5 more specific things to think about. Things that might help you out with the whole being young at heart thing. These are things that ended up in my world as a result of thinking of myself as someone who was proudly young at heart. I definitely think of myself that way, and when I do, I feel open, fun, silly, curious, and interesting. And when I feel these ways, I am likely to do things that help me feel youthful and fun. The bottom line is that when I feel youthful and fun, I identify with being young at heart. My result proves my thoughts, and so will yours. And a little note, I'm wanting to go beyond eating better, moving more, and getting more rest. I'm not going to talk about that. We all know we should be doing more of that, and that those kinds of things are related to health, and health can make you feel more vibrant and young at heart, but I'm not going to talk about that. Here are 5 interesting ideas that I was open to trying because I thought of myself as young at heart, and then they perpetuated the idea in the end. So no judgment, please. Number 1, a toe ring. Yes, you heard me correctly. It's tiny, it's fun, and it's more on trend than I usually am. I have to tell you, when I wear it, I feel a little different, maybe a little more fun, and a little more cool. And feeling cool is related to my idea of being young at heart. It's funny how I noticed this. When the kids were small, about 20 years ago or so, I was in a chaotic life blur, and I'm sure some of you guys can relate to that. Looking cool and noticing trends was the last thing on my radar. I was just trying to shower once a day. I went to visit my family in Pennsylvania one time, and my younger sisters had toe rings. I noticed that I had never seen toe rings before. Immediately, I felt old and out of it. I had 3 little kids, 3 kids in 3.5 years, and I didn't feel young at heart at all. So anyway, I came back home to Toronto, and I shared that story with a friend. And what do you know, this friend surprised me with a toe ring for my birthday. Yes, that little twisted silver piece of jewelry represented being young at heart to me. It was trendy and a little different. It was fun, and I felt cool. So what I learned from the toe ring experience is my first suggestion for you. Be open to trying new things like trends. When you're open, you'll notice more things to try and also feel more positive about trying them. Trying a trend on for size every once in a while is a good idea to keep you thinking about yourself as young at heart. It doesn't have to be a toe ring, but something fun that you associate with being youthful, not old and boring. Speaking of fun, here's number 2. Be open to having fun with beauty. Now, I know all of you don't care about beauty in the same way, that's for sure. And that's okay. You might care about your hair more than makeup, or you might love perfume or nail polish. Or maybe you don't like that stuff at all. Maybe you like creams. Maybe you like special soaps in the shower. It doesn't really matter, but what does matter is when you think about yourself as someone who is young and fun enough to enjoy beautification, it can have interesting results. For example, when you think about it in a way that you embrace spending time and money on beauty, notice how you feel. And when you feel this way, you act a certain way, which creates something for you. When I think about being someone who is young at heart, I think about not being stuck in my ways so that I never make personal changes. That's what old people do, in my mind. My thoughts are that they give up and don't care about how they look anymore. And that type of thing can happen at any age because it's based, in my mind, on how they feel about valuing that kind of effort. Now, I know that this is a thought of mine, but that's the point. I want to be young at heart. That thought means something to me, and it means something to you too. It might mean something different, but it does mean something to you. So I want you to ask yourself what it means. It's all related to aging and what aging means to you. So getting back to beauty, I have a thought that when you're young at heart, beauty matters. And that's why I think it's important to consider having fun with beauty. Yes, actually go out of your way to enjoy it and allow yourself the pleasure. For example, I had a blast with magnetic eyelashes recently. Have you heard of those? Like the toe ring, I'm pretty much out of it when it comes to false eyelashes. I'd never tried them in any format. But about 6 months ago, I went to a workshop and I was sitting next to a woman who had the most beautiful makeup and eyelashes, way more than I know from. I do wear makeup every day, but a little bit. And this woman looked stunning and she had these amazing eyelashes. I was sitting next to her so I could see her lashes from the side. And I noticed that they must be false eyelashes because they were really obvious. And I hadn't ever really noticed anyone my age wearing false eyelashes before. So I have to say I was fascinated with her and her beautiful look. And I think I might have been staring at her too. But the point is, I wanted to try them. I started to think about what it would be like to wear them. I wanted to be young at heart and try new pretty things like this. So I went home and started to look online for false eyelashes. I wanted to learn a little bit about it. And then an ad popped up for magnetic eyelashes in Facebook. It sounded good to me, no icky, sticky adhesive, because I'd never used anything like that before. The whole adhesive thing scared me a little bit. So I thought it would probably be better. I ordered them and I waited impatiently for them to arrive. When the package came, I ran upstairs and read the directions. I laid them all out. I proceeded to try to put them on. Emphasis on try. I struggled. I dropped them. I grabbed my iPad and I watched a YouTube video. I tried again. I cracked up. I tried again and again. I continued to crack up. And then I realized what the problem was. If I'm doing anything that tiny, I need my reading glasses. And you can't put eyelashes on when you're wearing readers, right? They bonk right into the glass. So therein lies the problem. I basically gave up, but I had such a good time trying. Now I will try them again because they were not cheap. Because honestly, I am really fascinated with the whole thing. I have to tell you, I loved every girly giddy minute of trying these stupid things on. I really wanted to try something new and pretty. And that's what I would recommend. When it comes to beauty, I think it's worth the effort to try something new and have fun with it. Whatever floats your boat. Hair, lipstick, eye makeup, nail polish, a special cream, a special soap, perfumes, whatever. In fact, I've got one soap that I discovered now. I found it at the cottage show. Can't even remember the name of it, but I'm absolutely in love with it. It starts with an L. I'll post it in the show notes. I don't share it. I keep it in my bathroom. It's delicious. It just oozes this scented, I don't know, there must be essential oils in there or something, but it can be something like that. It's just something that's in the beauty category that is delicious. You know what I mean? Just not food, but delicious or fun. Just something really fun. So whatever it is, notice how you're thinking about spending time and money on such a thing and how those thoughts make you feel. Ask yourself, does your version of being young at heart include having fun with beauty? If it helps you feel something that's in line with your belief about being young at heart, you are on to something good. All right. Now, number 3, we've already talked about. Quite simply, it's laughing your head off. Keeping a sense of humor is amazing when your goal is to be young at heart. Go to comedy, hang out with fun friends, allow yourself to let your hair down. Just do it. It is worth it. Okay, number 4, say yes to more things. This idea really works well with my idea of what it means to be young at heart. In my mind, I believe that when you're young at heart, you smile, you're open, you try new things. When you're the opposite of young at heart, you don't. So what that can mean is saying yes more often. Think about it. When you say yes, you put yourself in the space to be more spontaneous. That proves being young at heart in my book. Again, you really have to think about what young at heart means for you. And these suggestions I'm giving you are related to my idea of young at heart. So you really have to think about it. But it's also important to make sure to notice if you are resistant to saying yes, because it's a huge opportunity to see what you're actually thinking. Why don't you want to do it? Why don't you want to go? Allow yourself the time to answer that question and check on why you're resistant. That will shine a big giant flashlight on what you're actually thinking, and then you get to decide if those thoughts are serving you. Do you have a thought that it's because you're too tired, that's why you don't want to go or say yes? Is it that you're too old? Is it that you don't want to look stupid? Is it that you won't know anyone? All interesting to think about. What if you said yes anyway? Saying yes often is a good thing. It's usually more times than not, in my experience, you'll have a good time. It often means that you're doing something new. You're changing it up. You're putting yourself out there. You're opening yourself up to new opportunities. All things that can help you think in a way that creates that youthful feeling that comes from thinking about yourself as being young at heart. And last but certainly not least, number 5, keep learning. This one is interesting because there's research to support that learning new things helps your brain actually stay more youthful. And then from a psychological perspective, learning also helps you feel excited and interested. So ask yourself again, do you want to be a person who keeps learning? In my mind, continuously learning and wanting to learn is something that is a part of being young at heart. You might even say it makes you feel alive because when you learn new things, you have new opportunities, you challenge yourself, you meet more people, and you improve yourself. All great ways to be young at heart. Of course, there are way more things you can do to be young at heart, or what I started out talking about at the beginning of the podcast, this idea of think and grow young. I just didn't want this podcast to be the podcast episode that never ends, so I stopped at naming 5 ideas, but you get the picture. How you think about your age matters. When you think one way, you feel youthful. When you think other ways, you feel old. You get to choose. It's personal. You get to choose. Once you focus on wanting to be young at heart, your brain will help you come up with other ways to do it. When you start with the thought, it's easier to ask yourself how you're going to feel youthful, not if you're going to feel youthful. That's really the key. You got to notice your thoughts. And if they don't help you feel the way you want about your age or about anything else, you can choose to think differently. Yes, it will take work, but you can do it. If that's what you want, you can absolutely practice supervising what's going on up there in your brain and make changes that serve you better and help you grow young. That's what I mean by think and grow young. Your thoughts create your feelings. Stigma about aging is everywhere. Ageism is a total thing. You have to be keenly aware of how you're actually entertaining thoughts about all of it, or before you know it, you won't be walking the walk of someone who is young at heart. You can totally do this. You just have to be on to your amazing self to see what you are actually thinking. That's it for this episode. If you like what you've heard, just head over to the Women in the Middle podcast on iTunes and leave me a review. This is such a great way to help other women know that there is such good stuff going on in this podcast. Also, check out the show notes with more information and links at www.susierosenstein.com. Let's do this, ladies, one silly, youthful moment at a time. Thanks so much for listening.